Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Secret to Sizzling Photos on Social Media. I'm Tanya Kubo, and I help writers, speakers, and entrepreneurs just amplify their messages using socially savvy strategies. And today I am so excited to welcome Clara Koo, who's a brand photographer. Say hey, Clara.
Hi, guys.
And welcome to the replay viewers, because we always know that you're first on the beginning of the broadcast. Clara is joining me today, and I cannot even stand how excited I am because I was Clara's guest on IG Live last week, and we were discussing what you need to know about brand photos. And I'm thrilled to have her join me here today to share her secrets for sizzling photos on social media, because I know writers, speakers, entrepreneurs, unless you're a creative entrepreneur and you naturally do graphic design or you naturally do photography, images can paralyze you. And Clara is phenomenal. So Clara, what I would love to do is, actually, would it be okay with you if I shared the YouTube link for our interview last week with
Yeah.
everybody? Okay, so I'm going to pop that in the comments right now. Why don't you tell people a little bit about you?
Hey, everyone. I'm Clara Koo, and I'm a personal brand photographer out of Jacksonville, Florida, so Northeast Florida. And what I really love doing is empowering other entrepreneurs to be the face of their brand. A lot of the times when I meet other entrepreneurs who are a bit hesitant about using their own personal photos as part of their social media strategy, it's usually one of four reasons. Either one, they don't have a library or the time to have a stock of nice photos of themselves and their business. Two, there's generally can be a lot of insecurity. People are uncomfortable being on camera, so they don't want to put themselves out there. Three, there's another concern that, if I put myself out there so much, will others, think I'm vain? So there's sort of like a perception thing that they have. And then the last one is four, you might not realize the difference personal brand photos can make to your business's bottom line and how valuable it is to actually humanize your brand by putting a face to the business. So I love working with people who may be struggling with some of that and help them overcome it.
Oh my gosh, Claire. So you hit on all the high points of our show, all in your introduction, which I love. So the first thing I want to do, because like you said, there is a confidence issue, I think, when it comes to your photography on social media. So for those of you who are watching, I would love, before we get started, to get a quick read of where everybody's at. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, I'd love to know how confident you are in your use of photos on social media. So it's a 1 to 5 scale, and at the end we'll come through and we'll see how folks have rated. And let's talk about our first point today. But before we do that, you know what? If there is somebody you know who could benefit from what the free training Claire is going to give us today on, how to get those sizzling social media photos, those ones that drive engagement, those ones that drive clicks, definitely share this. You can share this now, you can share it later. We just really would appreciate that. And I think your friends would appreciate it as well. So let's start by talking, Clara, about your cover and your bio photos. Because as we dive into the content of today's show, I think that this is everybody's most undervalued. It's kind of the underdog when it comes to your social media photography. When I work with a prospective client, what I find, they're so worried about the day-to-day posts that they don't spend a lot of time thinking about what their cover image is, what their bio image is, and what that says about them. But I find that that's your prime social media real estate. And it doesn't matter if you're a writer, you're a speaker, you're another type of entrepreneur. I really feel like this is a place that makes that first impression. I'm going to share my screen to share a couple of examples, but I want you to just, maybe if you could expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, so I wanted to just start with like the Facebook page, and the three core images that you tend to have on the Facebook page is, of course, the cover photo, which dominates the page, and essentially it's the first thing that someone notices when they land. And so you basically, in the first 5 seconds, you want to make a really great first impression with that image. Then to the left of it, you've got a smaller profile image, and then there's also one for your bio. Now, I'll just touch on the Facebook cover image first. because it takes up so much of the screen, that is basically your most prime real estate. And within 5 seconds, anyone landing on your page should know what you do, who you are, and more importantly, how you can actually help them. Because the hero for any of your photos and branding is, your client. Like, why should they bother to follow you? Why should they read your content? It's because you're going to help them. And an example I have pulled up is, an actual other photography couple who I actually follow and love, who I think represents those three images really well. So let's just take a look at their Facebook page. So their Facebook cover image, huge, beautiful. They're Amy and Jordan. They're photographers, educators, and sweethearts. So with those three bullets, they're telling you several things. Of course, they're photographers. They're educators because their audience is teaching fellow photographers, generally in the portrait and wedding industry, about how to get a successful photography business. And sweethearts, it's a little personal nugget about them because they are college sweethearts who got married and they're a husband and wife duo. So there are certain people like myself, I gravitate towards husband-wife couples because that's something that I like to do with my husband too. So that little nugget of personality, is in their cover image. If you look at the three cover images as well, they do a very good job of having consistency in their branding, which is another key thing when you look at your Facebook page. Are those three images consistent in terms of how they're styled, how they're lit? And because of that consistency, it basically lends your business a certain level of professionalism and credibility that you might not have otherwise if you, let's say, had three random photos that didn't have that same consistent look and feel. And ideally, this consistency is carried through to your main website and your other accounts. When you click on Amy and Jordan's main website, that same light and airy feel that you see on their Facebook page is also carried through on their website. So they're very good at maintaining their brand throughout all of their platforms. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then the other thing I'd just like to point out too is in all three images, they feature themselves prominently. So you immediately get a sense of, the business is called Amy and Jordan. Boom, here are what Amy and Jordan look like. The happiness that they have as being a husband and wife couple, you can see. Even in their bio, they're pushing a stroller because they recently had their first child. So that family aspect, which is always a good type of engagement because other people with families can certainly relate. That's woven into their photos as well. So all in all, they just do a very bang up job of letting you know who they are, what they're doing. And if this type of photography appeals to you, like the style that they're showing, then they're going to attract those other people who want to shoot and edit photos in that style. And I wanted to curious, what were your first impressions, Tanya, when you saw them?
Well, thank you. And so, we just heard from Clara, who's a brand photographer. We're going to be doing a lot of screen sharing in this particular show. So you probably aren't going to see our faces much, and that's okay. I'll just make sure that I come in and let you know who's talking.
Yeah.
So I'm Tanya Kubo, and my guest is Clara Koo. And so what we're doing right now is we're going to audit a couple of Facebook pages just to help everybody get a sense of the importance of the cover photo and the bio photo. And in the instance of this particular Facebook page, we also have a really nice prominent story photo. And so one of the things that jumps out at me, and especially because I work with most of the entrepreneurs I work with are not creative entrepreneurs in the visual sense. So they're writers, they're speakers, they may be coaches of some sort or consultants, but they don't feel like they have a natural affinity or talent when it comes to artistry. So I know my writing fans and my speaking fans are going to look at this page, and the first thing they're going to say is they're using the same photo twice, and that's repetitive. Because those of us who are trained writers, we're taught not to use the same words over and over again. Mm-hmm. But, you kept using a word, consistency. And I think what we have to remember is in social media and in digital marketing, consistency is everything, and consistency leads to credibility. So when you look at this page, Amy and Jordan, I see Amy and Jordan's bio picture, which is the left-hand photo. That's the photo I'm going to see if they message me. That's the photo I'm going to see if they post in a group that I'm part of. So then when I go over to their page and I see that exact same photo as their cover photo, well, now I know I'm in the right place. Like that's Amy and Jordan.
Yes.
Okay, this makes sense. And then their names are there. So I'm like, oh, okay, so now I know where I'm at and I'm orienting myself. Now, if I click and go over to their website and I see them, I don't know, digging in their garden, I may go, okay, wait, I don't know where I'm at. And so, ideally, I'm going to click to their website. I'm going to see the same photo. And like you said, I'm going to see that same general emotion and style, that lightness, that airiness. They've got a lot of white space on their cover photo. It would be off-putting to me to go to their website and find it to be cluttered.
Yes. And they are very good about having that clean aesthetic throughout all their stuff.
So the other photo that I wanted, or the other Facebook page I wanted to look at, and I did not tell you I was going to do this, but I'm going to do this, is yours.
Okay.
And the reason is because I think there's a couple of points that I would love to make with your Facebook page that is of particular interest to the writers, speakers, coaches in the world.
Okay.
And so we're going to pop this on really quick. And I love learning new features. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's what I wanted to point out with yours. So, we've got the same principle. We have you're in both pictures. We've got a great version of you here in the cover photo. We've got your name. We know what you do. You do photography and design. You're a personal brand photographer. Your Facebook page name is the same. You're Clara Koo Photography and Design. But here's the thing that I think people don't realize, and it may seem subtle, but it's not, is that in your biopic, you have a camera. So again, since that biopic's going to follow you everywhere you go on social media, every group you post in, every time you comment on a friend's page, I think it's so important when it's practical that biopic gives an indication to what you do or what you want me to know about what you do. And so I think for photographers especially, that camera is ideal. For a speaker, if you've got a picture of you with a microphone, that is important. If you're a writer who's published a book, a picture of you in your book is not, it's not as showy or self-aggrandizing as you might think. So that's what I wanted to point out there. Tell me what you think about it.
And I'm wondering, Tanya, would you mind hitting refresh to see if change? Because there was something I had added because I wanted to bring it up, thinking you might actually do this. Oh, I hope I didn't lose you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Are we live?
Yes.
Okay, I have no visual on you, Clara. I don't know what I did. So I'm going to take everybody out and bring us back in. Thanks for hanging out with us, viewers. We so appreciate you.
I can.
And let's make sure. No sound. Okay. All right, Clara, can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Great. Okay, but I cannot hear you. So we're going to do that again. We're just going to go in. We're going to go out. It's going to be so much fun. All right, say something.
Hello.
All right, well, this is going to be exciting. So I am going to have Clara come back in. So I'm Tanya Kubo, and I am talking with Clara Koo, who's a brand photographer, and we were just doing a whole bunch of screen sharing, and I think we upset Facebook Live. Now I can hear Clara. I hear the background sound already. This is awesome. And then I'm just going to make sure that we didn't lose our feed. So Clara, maybe you could just recap a little bit.
Yeah, we were just taking a look at a business's photography page and saying how important it was to be consistent across your 3 Facebook page images, which is your cover photo, your profile page or your profile pic and then your bio image. Consistency is key. So whether they're clicking into you from a profile pic and then landing on your Facebook page and then also going to your website, your images should still maintain that same consistent look and feel, because that basically promotes professionalism and credibility when you're consistent across all your platforms. Tanya was also touching on how important it is in a profile pic, especially to have some kind of indication of what you do in that profile pic. So instead of just your lovely face, like for me as a photographer, I try very hard to have some form of the camera as part of my profile pic. So if you're a speaker, you might have, the book that you're writing in your hand, or if you, speaker, author, book in your hand, or speaker, perhaps it's an image of you, speaking, with a microphone to let people know, like, oh, she speaks at conferences or events, etc.
Exactly. So thank you again for sharing that. And thank you everybody for hanging out with us while we had our little technical difficulty. So I'm going to bring the screen up to show Clara's Facebook page again. So Clara, did you want to share a little bit about this with us?
Yes, and the reason I asked you to refresh is because this is an example of how even I was self-evaluating myself and thinking, well, I don't think that my Facebook cover photo conveys everything I want someone to learn. So I had changed it to say, my page is all about growing your personal brand. I want to attract people who want to grow their personal brand. And then the end result would be they would get 90 days of social media images from a single shoot and attract clients they love. My previous Facebook cover image did not convey all of that, so I wanted to update it and also let people know that sometimes it's a work in progress. Like, you try different things out on your Facebook cover image. It shouldn't be something that is stale. As you try different messages on your pages, don't be afraid to tweak it, as I tweaked it, and that's why I asked Tanya to refresh. But to her point, I tried to have the camera in both the profile pic and the Facebook cover images, because if someone just happens to skip by all my text, then they could still say, okay, at least we get a sense that I'm a photographer of some sort. And so, just keep that in mind. Like, what are the other props and things about your particular job that you could include in the image?
Oh, I think that's so key. And what I also like is, and I touched on this earlier, is, the fact that we've got a camera in the cover photo, we've got a camera in the profile photo. I know I'm in the right place. I have a sense of trust because I think that, nobody wants to feel dumb, right? Nobody wants to be confused. We just tend to skip if something confuses us. So I know we have more pictures to go through, but I want to make sure that we're kind of just able to keep ourselves a little bit on track here, because I can talk to Clara for like a million years. That's just where we're at. So what I wanted to do is talk about the importance, I think, of when you're looking at images and you're on social media, is you've got to be you. And, so as a personal brand, and you touched on this already, which I think describes just about every entrepreneur, it's my opinion that you have to be front and center in your social media photos, especially in the cover and the bio. And I know that you've talked to us a little bit about that already, but what I was hoping is that we could talk about some of these other photos that you've shared. So
Sure.
I have a woman who looks like she's pouring some coffee.
Okay.
So I'm going to bring that one up. And there we go. So tell me about this photo and how it's a good example of a personal brand photo.
So just to back up a little bit slightly, to your question about, being authentic on social media, because nowadays people are pretty savvy in identifying if something is not authentic, is a stock image, doesn't fit with what you say that you're about. And so what's really important to be authentic is really identifying what are the stories that you naturally already have. And when I say story, it's like, what are the things that make up who you are, whether it's the routines that you might naturally do as part of your day-to-day lives. When I work with a client, we're not trying to come up with a routine that they've never actually done before. It's like, what do you do already? So for my client here, her name is Laura. She runs a blog for Coptic dad and mom. So she's niching down. She wants to reach out to other families who have have spouses in the religious ministry, just as a sum up. And so a lot of her blog is about, wellness and having the right mindset. And when I asked her, like, well, what would you like to photograph that is something essentially very you? And she talked a lot about tea, that she always makes tea in the morning, and it's part of her morning routine because that's how she gets into the right mindset. And she has a portion of her blog that says, like, tea time with Laura. But I noticed she never, like, had pictures of herself actually making the tea, but she talked about it. So it's like, you know what? Why don't we do an entire sequence where this is her actual kitchen? Like, we did a photo shoot at her house. You brewing the tea, those are like her own supplies. That's like one of her favorite mugs. Just make the tea and enjoy it. And then she was excited because she plans to use these types of tea images to talk about the importance of self-care, the importance of a morning routine, and how having the right mindset helps her stay productive throughout the day, because she preaches on her blog that the key to productivity is having the right focus and mindset so that you can achieve, anything you want. And so this tea image is just her basically going through the motions. And what I found is it's so much easier, instead of like quote unquote posing someone, ask them to just go through something that they naturally do, making tea, doing yoga, something. And it makes them more comfortable because then it's not a pose to them. It's just something that they're already moving through, that they do every day. And then it feels a lot more natural sharing stuff that way.
Great. Now, should I advance?
Yeah, let's see what comes up next.
There we go. I love the surprises. Do you see the next picture?
Yeah, so again, this is at her house. She has this huge backyard. So we did another story where she wanted to highlight that she has these different planners. That's what's in the basket right now. She has these different planning books that she uses to plan out her day, but also when she works with other clients. And this was one of the things about, how to adjust mid-shoot. So we were having her, smiling, kind of some standard stuff. And then I just asked her, because she's very animated when you talk to her personally. So in the middle of this session, I asked, can you just tell me about your favorite blog post that you've written this year, and tell me why. And as she started talking, she started using her hands, and she got really, really enthusiastic. So this is her basically mid-sentence gushing about like this recent post that she wrote and why. And when we did a sequence of these, and her face when she saw them, she's like, oh my God, those are totally the faces that I would actually create. None of them were like the smiling ones. They're just her talking and like, being really expressive. So if you feel like you don't like how you look in photos because you feel like stiff or overly posed, an easy prompt someone can give you is just talk about something you naturally love, and you'll find that your emotions come out, and that gets rid of some of the stiffness that you might see in other photos where you're kind of just like, grinning in a studio, where there's kind of like no context to what you're saying versus like how you look. Does that make sense?
That's perfect. And one of the things that I wanted to, okay, wait, crazy echo. Hold on 1 second. All right. So what I was going to say is one of the things, that's not working. All right, let's see. Is the sound better?
I can still definitely hear you.
Awesome. Okay. So I was going to say that, what I hear a lot is that my clients don't want to be overly self-promotional. In fact, I have one client who always says, I don't want to be a Kardashian. I'm not a look at me person. Mm-hmm. And so what I like about this is I'm seeing her, I'm seeing who she is, but it doesn't feel that vain to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's part of when you have really good brand photography, personal brand photography, is it's not a whole bunch of selfies. Mm-hmm. It's not a bunch of duck lips, right? It's just you being you in your natural setting.
Mm-hmm. I think too, it's funny, like we use that Kardashian, the Kardashian metaphor. I feel like sometimes people are afraid, like, they're all of a sudden going to jump from not posting anything about themselves to all of a sudden posting like every single day about themselves. And by all means, I'm not saying that you need to go to that everyday post about yourself level. You need to have some kind of variety in the stories that you're telling, in the personal brand stories about yourselves. And Tanya, in our last IG, I saw, or maybe it's one of the comments to one of my followers. You had suggested like a breakdown, like out of 30 days, you'd have X number of posts about something about your business, X amount of posts about your, your personal life, etc. And nowhere in your calendar did you say post about just yourself for every single day, 30 days straight. You didn't say that. It was just about the right mix. So for your clients who are afraid that they're going to come off Kardashian, well, I really don't think you'd ever achieve that unless you were literally going to talk about yourself all the time on every single post.
Yeah. And I think that that's another really good point is whatever you're most afraid of, I think is typically not something you're ever going to do. And so if you're afraid of putting yourself out there too much, then chances are you could probably put yourself out there about 10 times more than you're doing, and you're still probably at everybody else's comfort level. So can I advance this?
Yes.
Because, I think we're like, I love the fact that you're sharing these photos with us and that we're able to really illustrate what we're talking about to viewers. So I'm guessing this is your same subject.
Yes, this was a different take on the, I had mentioned before, she uses a bunch of different planners. So this was a time where like, okay, let's just lay you out on the blanket. This is a blanket that she had. And then I asked her like, actually, do some work, because she's all about to-do lists. So prior to the shoot, I had asked her like, hey, I know you normally do your to-do list first thing in the morning, but could you wait and do it when I'm actually photographing you? So again, it's going back to the idea of I'm just capturing a routine. I'm not asking you to do something you don't naturally do. So here, she was actually planning out the rest of her week in that planner. And so she's not looking at me like throughout this entire sequence of photos that I got, she never looked at me once. And so this is sort of like, this is like her thinking face, right? And going back to the idea of being authentic, absolutely not every photo of you has to be happy-go-lucky and smiling. It can be thoughtful, you can be vulnerable, you can look, worried if that's the emotion you're feeling in that moment. And in this moment, she was thinking through her day. Like, this is not a pose, look thoughtful for me, Laura. It was how she basically naturally reacts as she's trying to plan out the rest of her week.
Well, and this one's great because it's a photo of her. It's a photo of her product. It's a photo of her product in use. So this is a photo for me that, she could use this photo, 2 to 3 times a month with different captioning that calls out a different aspect of it. And because I know that, our final point that we're going to get to is how you take one photo and you make several social media posts out of that one photo. And so I think that this is a really good live example of that. Would you like me to go to the next photo?
Yes. I can't remember how many I put in there of her, but different one, different person.
Different person.
It's a bit like Russian roulette. I'm like, what did I give you again?
Yeah, I think the one after this is a side view of the truck.
Yes. So this is just to go back to the Facebook cover image and image composition in general. So when you tell your photographer exactly what you plan to use this image of, it really changes how we're going to compose the shot. So my client here, her name is Holly. She runs a fashion truck boutique called Belle of the Boulevard. So this is like her super cute fashion truck where inside she has all of these hand-picked clothing items, clothing, jewelry, etc. That she's picked and she sells. So we really wanted to highlight photos of her in her truck. And she needed like a cover photo per se. And you know how the cover photo, they generally tend to be fairly wide, like panoramic. So when I shot this, I had to keep that in mind in terms of making sure there was enough negative, like empty space towards the left or right of her truck. Because generally Facebook cover photos, like I said, they should tell the audience quickly who you are, what you do, and what you provide. Generally, a lot of Facebook cover images tend to pair other images and text with it. So I had to keep that in mind when shooting her truck. If, let's say, she didn't tell me that, I might have just kind of zoomed in more on herself, maybe a close up more of the truck. But because I knew that ahead of time, I was able to do the layout accordingly. So it's really important too, whenever you get a photo shoot done, convey to your photographer like what exactly you need it for, because that will affect how we take it.
So I like that you said that. You definitely need to communicate what you need it for. But I think also, and I'm just going to be blunt here, if your photographer doesn't understand social media, doesn't understand the limitations of your Facebook cover photo, I think you really need to have a hard conversation with yourself about whether this is the right person to be taking these photos for you. Because, and I don't want to step on the live interview that we did last week, but the link is here in the comments, Clara. But I do think that we don't do anybody any services unless we make sure that they understand that not every photographer has the skill or even the eye to create this type of photo.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the next photo.
So I think the next couple are just different variations of her with her truck. So this is an interesting thing she brought up when I asked, oh, can you go back one? So she said one of her issues was she likes to do private events, bring her truck to a private event, maybe like a common wish is like bridal parties, bridal shower parties. And she said in the beginning, like one of her issues was when she explains to people, oh, I have a fashion mobile truck. If they're not quite, they don't quite know what to picture. Like, what does that mean to bring a fashion truck to one of my events? So we did a sequence of images like the one you just saw before and this one you're seeing here of really featuring her truck front and center, because when people see her with her pink truck, they know immediately, oh, that's Bella the Boulevard, because pink is like one of their primary main brand colors. So this was her in the truck. I have seen her use her truck photos now on flyers for events, on her Facebook, and on Instagram. Over and over, she's using these truck images, and now she's quickly getting associated with it because of that pink truck image. So when you're looking into like investing in photos, don't just think about like the cost of that photo shoot, but just think how many times you could reuse this photo to attract other clients, and think of the ROI you can get from attracting people just from that image alone. And you touched on that greatly in our Instagram a few days ago too, Tanya.
Right. And I just think that that's so important, right? Because a picture is not just a picture when you are establishing yourself as a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
So shall we go to the next one?
Yes. I think so this is the idea of working in location and environment in your photo. So different client, her name is Blythe. So this was similar to the notes, how do you plan your day story that Laura, the first client I had. And this is to illustrate that people can have very similar stories, like how I plan my day, how I get up in the morning. People can have the same story, but can be told very different ways because we're all unique. We don't do the exact same thing. We go to different places. This is her in her favorite coffee shop that is nearby where she lives. So again, this was her writing out. She was, I think, planning her next client meeting with one of the vendors she was working with. She works a lot with logistics and transportation websites. And so she wanted to tell a story of where she goes to get inspired, and this coffee house was one of them. If we had had the time, we would have also gone to the beach because she said there's a specific tree by a beach where she goes to get most of her brainstorming done. So when you think about images and like feeling authentic, think already of the places that you like to go, where you already feel comfortable and like to get work done, or that just happens to inspire you. And then when you talk about it in your captions, and you touched greatly about captions too and how important they are, Tanya, you can talk about that more easily in your captions because this is already like a place that you love. And then you might be surprised at people chiming in saying, oh, I love that place too. Like if they recognize where you are, like I love that place too. Or I also love going to that coffee house because XYZ. And just, it helps you, the subject, relax more because they're already in a familiar, comfortable setting. Like if I had taken her in, like, let's say a Starbucks, I could have taken her there. We could have photographed her in the Starbucks, but was it the place that she goes to really? Like, that's right by her house. It wouldn't have really given the same energy.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's that little detail that I think really matters. So I'm going to go to the next photo.
Oh, I love this one. So if you go to this one, and the next one might be even better. Yes. So her name is Grace. She owns a restaurant called Subcultured, and on her Instagram page specifically, she already had a lot of photos of like the food. I see this a lot with restaurants, right? They usually
Mm-hmm.
post photos of their delicious food, and rightly so. Like you want to attract people with the food, but sometimes it's very rare for me to see like who are the actual restaurant owners or who are the chefs of the restaurant. So I really wanted to have a couple shots of her because she's the one basically hustling behind the scenes. She's cooking, she's serving the customers, she's cleaning the tables when customers are done eating. I wanted to like, hey, let's do a photo of just you because you and also her boyfriend, you guys are the owners of this place. Like you built this, you're 4 years in. Why don't we do a few shots of this? I'll say even on my end, when I shared this photo, this was one of the most highly liked, highly engaged photos that I posted even on my feed. It's not even on hers, but on mine. And I think because the fact that we got to see an actual owner of a brick and mortar business in their element, in their actual brick and mortar business, it really resonated with people. And you got to see, like, this is the owner making it happen for you. I think this is really key for a lot of small business owners. You don't have a huge staff, so maybe that's why you're running around and you don't have time to have photos taken of yourself. But I think it will really resonate because we generally gravitate to small business owners because we got to know the owner.
Oh, I totally agree. And I also think that using your example of a restaurant, the danger of when all you're using are pictures of food is people come in, they order that dish, and if it doesn't look exactly like your photo, you might have a little bit of a reputational challenge on the line. But when you're showing them pictures of you, and I love this, I love her with the soda at the window, you're reminding me that you're not just a taco truck, you're not just a sandwich place, right? You're a person. And when I go and I buy that sandwich, then I'm making a further connection with you. And so I love that about this photo. And I love that just about that principle. Should I go to the next one?
Yes. Oh, sorry, it's out of order. I just
That's fine.
um, I wonder what's the next one because it might remind me of the point. Oh, these were just different aspects of life working in different sections of her office. One of the stories that you know any entrepreneur could really get into was like, what's your behind the scenes process? So this is her with like all of her stuff laid out around her in her office. Um, as you can see, one of my trends is I like to photograph people in their actual workspace. I don't necessarily want to take them out to a place they're not familiar working in. So all of these shots of Blythe are in her actual in-home office.
Great. And so I want to share just really briefly, we have Jen Bryant is watching,
Hello.
and Jen actually owns a restaurant. And so what she's saying, she's validating that the point about not just showing pictures of your food really makes sense because people love knowing that they're supporting individuals versus a chain, that what they do really matters. So you've got validation right here from a restaurant owner that, it makes sense to put yourself front and center in your photography, even if your brand is an eatery.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like us to do more of these photos?
I I think we covered everything. I'm not even sure
Okay.
how many are left, Tanya. But I
I
think
think that actually is the
that's
last one I'm looking at. Yeah, that's the last one.
oh, I think the reason I included this was
Mm-hmm.
um, and I should have included the other one. So the stuff behind her, like one of them is a comic book. It's like these little notes of like what her personal interests are. She's actually like a big comic book nerd, and I wanted to include what she already has up on her wall because that's part of her personality. She's into gaming, she's into nerd culture, etc. But I actually gave her a separate version of this that where I photoshopped out all of the frames behind her, so it was just blank empty space. That way she had flexibility in case she did want to use this image to place text on it, like for ads or something, which I know leads into what you were saying, Tanya. How can you use the same image a bunch of different ways?
Right. Okay, so let me take off the screen share and put us back up here. I want to make sure that everybody knows how to reach you. So you're claracu.com. I spelled that correctly, right?
KLARACU.com. Yes.
Yes. All right, good. So I just want to thank you, Clara. So we covered a lot of ground today. So we talked about just the importance of those cover and bio photos on social media. We showed everybody some examples. We didn't tear anybody apart. We didn't show you what not to do, but we did definitely, I think, show you some prime examples of what to do. We talked about, why it needs to be authentic to who you are, but why we also need to see who you are in your photos. And we talked about, benefits of selfies versus not using selfies, and then how to make the most out of those images, how to take that one picture and really make it go the distance by making multiple photos. Is there anything else you wanted to add today, Clara?
Yes. Just to touch on when you're figuring out which personal brand photographer you want to work with. Just 5 main tips, just to keep a lookout for as you're, finding someone to partner with. Really, the first would be make sure that when they're giving you they should be giving you high resolution digital images, and ideally they should be letting you have the right to edit those images. I know in other photography genres, we're very particular about not editing it in a way that's very different from ours. But if I'm photographing for a personal photography client, when I give you the images, they are there, they are yours for you to edit in the way that you wish because they are yours. And also the second main thing is I've given you commercial usage rights so that you can use it to promote your business, to sell things. So make sure you have the ability to not only edit, but have commercial usage rights as well, which is very different from traditional portrait photography, where generally you're just using images to like print up, a photo on your wall, for example.
Correct.
Also, make sure the photographer isn't requiring you to have to credit them whenever you post, because that idea of like having you're trying to promote yourself and then all of a sudden you have an outbound link to someone else. It's great if you do want to credit the photographer, but by no means should you be required. I don't require that. It's always nice, but I don't require that with any person I work with. And then lastly, make sure that they're open to formatting images to whatever you need. So there are times when there's a very specific image the client wants. They're like, hey, I need this as a perfect square or a Facebook cover photo. The one of Holly with the truck, where that really wide shot, it wasn't quite wide enough for how she wanted to use it on Facebook cover photo. And she asked me like, hey, I wanted to use it this way. I actually, in Photoshop, I built out a little more extra, like I extended like the grass and the sky, etc., so that it was just wide enough for her to fit all their stuff. And so see if you can find a photographer that is, willing to also take that into account. So you really do have flexibility and you just don't have the time to do it yourself.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you for those tips. If you caught us late, please go back on the replay and watch us from the beginning, because Clara has offered what I think is just some incredibly valuable training on how to make sure that your social media photos pop without being inauthentic, making sure that you are you in all aspects of your brand. So Clara, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And we've got Clara's website here if anybody wants to reach out to her, but I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanya. It was a lot of fun, both this one and the other live.
Yay! Oh no. Let's see here.